Hello. Um, Good afternoon, all. Welcome to day one of AISS 2021. Today we have a panel discussion here on stage two. The title of the panel discussion is DPO, Roles, Responsibilities, and Organization Culture. Our moderator for the event is Mr. Srinivas Pusarla, Senior Vice President and Chief Privacy Officer and DPO, Infosys Worldwide, he has over 11 years of experience in privacy. Over to you, Mr. Pusarla.
Hi, hi everyone. Am I audible, Anisha?
Yes.
Audience, yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion. First of all, thank you, DSCI, for inviting me to moderate this session, and also the participants, all the participants who took time to join this. I would, before I invite the panelists to the stage, I would set a little bit of context about the topic. See, and in fact, the topic about DPO is the very apt for discussion at this very juncture when the Data Protection Bill of India is almost around the corner, I would say. We know that the privacy is gaining significant prominence in the recent times in the hyper-connected world due to the technological innovation and the myriad ways in which the data processing can happen by the various controllers. So the mere potential that exists among the entities which capture data to glean the data together to draw profiles about people and draw inferences can completely intrude into our lives in day-to-day life and cause different kinds of agonies and distress if we are not able to control the way the companies operate and we put some boundaries on what can be done and what can't be done. And rightly so, the regulations have caught up in the last few years, and they make the organizations accountable to to see that they follow the regulations, to respect the choices that make people choices that people make, and at the same time ensure that the people who provide their data are informed and can actually exercise meaningful choices in the way they can share the data in the ecosystem. Because in the end of the day, all this is a lot to do with increased digitization, which helps people, the society. The eventually the rewards for the digital society are immense and huge. So there's no way we can keep privacy as an excuse for not going forward in the digital world. But but uh, but but very important to see that we balance between the extent to which innovation is adopted and how it is embraced, at the same time uh, balanced with the privacy aspects. In this entire game, the DPO plays an extreme role. We have a data protection authority defined, which will, once the bill comes, will be the one which will ensure that the regulatory compliance is driven well in the country. But at the same time, the DPO, Data Protection Officer, is an extended arm of Data Protection Authority who plays the role in a company to see that these interests of people are balanced with the innovation, etc., which the company has to embrace. This is the first point of contact, and it's an extremely important role. But if you see, this role is quite new in the space of digital corporations as well as the companies. In the last one decade, we have come a long way. In fact, when I took over this role in 11 years ago, particularly in this part of the world, it was almost unknown what is data protection and data privacy officer. People used to confuse with security. But we have come a long way, and today the regulations in many parts of the world mandate you to have a DPO, particularly when the processing exceeds certain thresholds, and it makes sense for to have a DPO. In this 40-minute session, we will explore the various challenges that are being faced by companies, by the DPOs in the company to play effective role. What does it mean, etc. So I have a very eminent set of panelists here. Maybe I'll quickly introduce each one of them and then go with the questions. Hina Mukadam, who is Data Privacy Officer for Society General, based in India, and she is experienced in information technology risk, data protection strategy, and data privacy risk management, with special focus on banking and financial services sector. Welcome, Hina. We have Sunny Atwal, Chief Privacy Officer at HCL Technologies. She is also a Magic Circle qualified lawyer with extensive in-house experience in risk and compliance of digital technology in the financial services sector. Welcome, Sunny. And last but very important, Vivian, very distinguished global leader in privacy space. She's a senior data strategy and policy advisor to the Center for Information Policy Leadership, CIPL, based in London, non-executive director of Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, advisor and ambassador to privacy culture, chair of the International Regulatory Strategy Group, Data Working Group UK, and is vice chair of board of the IAPP. And she's also OBE, officer of British Empire, very, very distinguished designation accorded in UK. So welcome, Vivian. Can we have Vivian? Yeah. Once again, welcome to all of you. I'm delighted to have you here and look forward to hearing your views. So first, I'll start with Vivian. Vivian, you know the role of DPO is relatively new in the space of the digital world, and it's evolving as we speak. And the challenges that I spoke about, privacy itself being evolving and taking a different shape in the digital world. How do you see this role evolving into what it means for the corporations? And while we have this role, we also see that organizations before had a role called CPO, Chief Privacy Officer, or equivalent privacy officer, and then these regulations mandate you to have a DPO. Some organizations combined it, some kept it different. I would like to hear your views about. Do you think it makes sense to have one? Is there a requirement to keep different? How are the organizations looking at, particularly in Europe, based on your experience?
Thank you very much for inviting me today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and absolutely my favorite topic, having been a CPO in 3 different organizations myself. We live in a digital and data-driven world, and I think the role of the data protection officer is only becoming increasingly important for all organizations, not just big global organizations that process a huge amount of data, but for small and medium enterprises as well. Because if there's one thing that we've learned from this global pandemic, it is that we need to embrace technology to stay functioning, to remain interconnected, and to enable our economies, our education systems, and our societies to continue to operate. And all of that involves data. So I think the role of the data protection officer is evolving quickly, and it's evolving in very significant ways. When I think of the role of the data protection officer, I think of it in 4 different ways. I think of it in the advisory role. They need to advise in relation to the relevant laws. And remember, those laws are multiplying. 2/3 of the world now has privacy laws, and that is increasing. It's not stopping, it's speeding up. I estimate that within 5 years, you'd be hard pushed to find many jurisdictions that don't have privacy laws. The other aspect of the role, of course, is operational and compliance, ensuring that there are policies and processes in place, measuring compliance, and then operationalizing that actually for the business so that you can actually physically do privacy as opposed to have it just written on a piece of paper. Advocacy. I think it's often underestimated the importance of the role for advocacy of the data protection officer. And what I mean for that isn't just internal advocacy in terms of the importance of data, but external advocacy. Having a voice, speaking with governments, speaking with regulators around how privacy laws and regulations and guidance is evolving is really important. Learning those lessons from other jurisdictions so that you can do it better in your own. And the final role, I think, is as a strategic partner. as a strategic partner to every business line. What's fascinating about the data protection role is that you mentioned combining it with other roles, whether it's a general counsel or a CISO, etc. They tend to be quite siloed. And we often think of the data protection role as yet another C role, and that we think of it as a vertical. It isn't. It's a horizontal. And that's the mindset that we need to change, is that the DPO is a horizontal. Every element of our business involves data. And what's fascinating is that the Chief Privacy Officer or the Data Protection Officer, and I'll talk about how those roles I think are evolving later on, um, for each one of those roles, they need to be, whether it's in finance, in HR, in your CRM database, there is data. And so they need to be engaged with each and every aspect of your business and your business line. So your data protection officer of the future is integral to everything that an organization does, whether you're an SME or larger. I think you can combine it with existing roles in SMEs because of the limited size of certain organizations. But I think increasingly we're going to see data protection officers with multiple people and multiple skills in every organization.
Good. Good to know that. A very good perspective brought up. We'll take this forward for discussion further. So coming to Sunny, I think you are in a position where in your organization, I think you kept the roles of DPO and CPO separate, if I know correctly. So it will be good to hear your perspectives on how is it benefiting when you keep these separate, and uh, how do you draw the boundaries, particularly between the two?
Sure. Thank you, Shonagas. And I would agree with what Vivian has just said, right? The role of the DPO and the CPO cuts across the organization. And one of the main, I guess, deciding factors for us to have a separate DPO and actually an external DPO is, given that we are an IT services company, a lot of what we do requires our customers' trust and transparency. Having someone who is external and is truly independent, right, outside of HCL, independent, can give that oversight and unfettered compliance is a real differentiator for HCL. And apologies, I've lost my voice, so I'm a little bit croaky this morning. But that was one of the main decisions and deciding factors why we decided to go with an external DPO. I think gives organizations a little bit more credibility, validation, and we have found, at least to date, is customers quite like the fact that there is someone external who's coming in, a bit like having an auditor or an extended arm of the regulator, which is effectively the role of the DPO, right? They are an extended arm of the regulator. They are there to acting in their duty and capacity to the law and the data subjects. And having someone external to fulfill that role has added value to our organization. But DPO and CPO, very similar roles, I would say. The way we and every organization will structure, the roles and responsibilities of their CPO and DPO slightly differently and uniquely. The way we have structured is very much the oversight and compliance aspect of the role is with the DPO. The CPO, my position is pretty much what Vivian was talking about, the advisory, the operational, the advocacy, working with the business, raising education and awareness, all of the, I guess, the kind of the soft skills, the relationship building sits within the CPO role, but we are joint at the hip, right? We have regular communications. Our DPO also, as required, especially as we know under the GDPR and many other regulations, has a seat at the table at the board. So they have direct line into the board, and we have actually we've had our external DPO come in and do a presentation to our board, and it's working very well actually to date.
Yeah, but for a DPO to play effective role, I think one of the requirements for the DPO is to be aware of the risks in the company, and all that requires them to have complete knowledge about the operations, what processing happens, and what changes we have made. So So it will require a good amount of communication between the organization and DPO, and maybe through you. So how does that work? The communication between the DPO and you, because the DPO is particularly external, they don't have day-to-day visibility into the changes that happen. So how do you bridge that gap?
So communication, like you said, is critical to the success of the DPO role. So we have multifacets and channels of communication. One is our DPO came in and spent, I think, at least 6 to 8 months understanding our business, working with our stakeholders, meeting our business leaders, reviewing our ROPAs, our privacy impact assessments. They've built relationships, their own independent relationships with our senior stakeholders, our work council, our employees. As we know, DPOs have to have a direct line. Data subjects, employees can reach out to the DPO at any time. So we spent a lot of investment in that, in creating lines of communication, and for them to truly understand our business so they can fulfill their role.
Okay, good, interesting. Hina, I had to ask you about a little different aspect, which is because of the role you play. You work as a DPO in India for a company which is global. So, what challenges do you see? And a good amount of DPOs now, I'm sure many will be in the participants also here, face this situation where a company is global and the headquarters are outside India, and they will have a central data privacy structure somewhere in France or US or somewhere in UK, and the local DPO needs to drive the aspects agenda here, both to abide to Indian law as well as to ensure that the data that comes here is conforming to all the international laws which apply to GDPR, etc. Right? So, how do you play that role, particularly when in a country like India where privacy is very early stage? Hopefully, it will change once the bill comes, but the cultural aspects are very different from what it is in France or Europe and vis-a-vis India. So, what challenges you see, and how do you bridge that gap?
Thank you, Srinivas, for this question, and hello, everyone. So, like you said, that yes, playing a role as a DPO in a global corporation has an added responsibility, not just to committing to protect the personal information of your employees as an organization, but also back to the entities and the community of DPOs globally. And what I believe that works for me in my experience is transparency and a continuous communication. So if I happen to work in silos in my organization trying to build a privacy culture in India where we still are awaiting a data protection bill, it won't help. So it's very important for me to pass the message in my organization, the upcoming importance of privacy, upcoming importance of data protection laws, right? And so that's my starting point. That was the very first challenge that I had seen, that we lack to have a bill, right? We lack to have a law in India, which then brings in a different culture in the organization. So it's very important that you treat that first. You make your organization realize, you make your employees realize that we're part of a bigger global entity, right? And a commitment is far bigger as we do business with global stakeholders. So it's very important for them to be made aware that what's relevant. Okay, that's one of the challenges that I see, that it's very important locally to make sure the employees are aware, make sure the management is aware what is their obligations, what is that they need to be following. At the same time, there's an equal responsibility of me with the DPO community of my organization, to be communicating with them, to be having to inform that yes, that we've not had a law, although we are aware what are our obligations as we do business with you. We understand privacy is evolving for India as well, and there always is, what I understand is there's a dilemma that what may happen when the draft PDPB bill gets passed. Will it impact the existing business? Will the culture change? Will it get more stringent? So as long as I have a continuous dialogue with the DPO community of my group, it's good to exchange them. It's good to give them updates of what's happening locally. When I happen to attend industry peer conferences, what are the approaches that other global corporations are taking? It kind of rest assures them. It's a lot of brainstorming, that this is something that we anticipate. This is something we could think of it tomorrow when we continue our business globally. So these are the two key things. It's about trust and it's about communication with your employees at the same time with your global DPO community. So that's how I see it.
Sure, thank you. So coming back to Vivian, Vivian, one of the important considerations for DPO or CPO to be effective in organization is to see that they have direct access to the top management. Preferably, they report to the top management, to the board. Although no law mandates it, they encourage that kind of structure. Rightly so, I believe also. So because of the situation they are in, where the data processes are right within the company, and if you they are able to influence you, then you will not be able to play the role effectively. But in reality, what we see mostly is that the DPO is not actually directly reporting to the board. In many companies, they are maybe at least two levels below, or some companies would have classified the CRO or GC as the DPO, a double role, two roles. So, what would, in your view, based on your experience working with many companies, you see is the right thing to do for effectiveness? Should it report to board? But you cannot have too many roles under the board. The board has a lot of things to do. You cannot have everybody, and particularly when the board is small, if you don't have many board members, that becomes a big challenge. So, how do you think what is the right structure for DPO?
It's an excellent question. Thank you so much. I think different organizations need to put the data protection officer role in different places, depending on the nature of the data that they process. So if you think about the big data companies, the chief privacy officer role is right up there. It's an executive role, and it does report to the board because they really focus on data. They appreciate that their business is data. And as a result, they give it the importance that the role deserves. For the rest of other organizations, it's a bit like we were, say, 20, 30 years ago with technology. Technology was merely seen as a function within the business. Yes, it was growing, but there was no need to have a person on the board who actually understood technology. And it was only when technology ended up being a huge item on the P&L and on the balance sheet, when the number of people employed in technology ended up being so significant, when the reliance on technology was one that created risk within the organization as well as opportunity, that we now see very few boards wouldn't have somebody that actually understands technology and is able to assist the business with a strategic view in relation to technology. And I believe that data is on that same journey. I think it's going to be a much shorter journey. It has to be a shorter journey because data is very much the lifeblood of so many organizations. There's organizations that are focused on data, but the reality of the world in which we're living in now is that we're seeing an exponential increase in digitization. We're seeing a digital transformation taking place. We're seeing a shift from the industrially based economies that we have to digitally based economies. We see these big dialogues globally about digital taxation, about how do you manage it with the tools that we currently have designed for the industrial world. How do you manage the realities of digital when you can supply services electronically as opposed to actually tangibly in the way in which we have done before? You think about, the transition that we've made from news. It used to be you'd hear it on the radio or you'd read it in the newspaper. Now you can download the newspaper. Why do you need to get your fingers dirty when actually you can just look it up on your screen, and have the news far more instantaneously than you would if you'd waited for the paper in the morning or in the evening, as the case may be? So I think the role of the data protection officer is working its way up the chain within organizations. Isn't it interesting that those who write the legislation have indicated that this ought to be a senior role that actually reports into the board? And that's because those writing the legislation understand the importance of data. But I think organizations are still catching up as to where exactly that role needs to sit. And I think that within 5 years, we'll start seeing board members who are properly and enabled with regard to data At the moment, there's very few, if any, that are actually enabled and skilled to understand the full spectrum of data, including personal data. But I think that's going to change. So the role of the data protection officer, yes, it needs to be senior, but I see it as part of a journey, and we're going to get there.
Yes, I agree fully with you. And I think a lot depends on, of course, it depends on the nature of industry, whether you are a data processing industry or data happens to come incidentally. But it also depends on we DPOs, CPOs, how we position our role, how we take up the challenge of balancing, making it a positive sum game to help the business leverage the personal information in the right way rather than shutting out everything. I think we have to position ourselves, and this role I see increasingly as an independent function, as a subject matter expertise, who's not somebody who goes to their board member or whoever it is day-to-day matters, but only for governance purpose. You need to have access to the board. I think my view also here would be that we should all make this. We have a long way to go, and we ourselves have to do a lot to see that this role becomes significant and important, recognized by the company. Sunny, the important consideration that we come across in DP today is very, very serious issue has become for all of us is, particularly in India, I see, is the skill shortage. As you know that you don't get resources in the market in the data privacy field, and probably we are going through what cybersecurity went 1 or 2 decades ago. And then there mushroomed a lot of curriculum on MTech and Masters of Cybersecurity, all that. Maybe privacy will also become one day like that. But it's not yet clear to people that should it be a technological skill? Is it a legal skill? We saw it evolved. To begin with, it started under legal. Obviously, anything to do where regulation needs to, the regulation is the reason for it. It starts with legal. But slowly people realize that it's not just legal, but it's also technological, heavily technological today. If you don't understand technology, then you probably cannot implement privacy. Today we are at that stage, or even recommend the right architecture for privacy. So what do you think the industry should do given the skill shortage? First of all, should it be technology or legal? What's your view? What's your experience? And what should be the way we should tackle this skill shortage issue that's bugging the entire industry? Not any company, almost all companies are struggling on this.
Yes, and I think we can all feel that pain, and it's a relatable issue, especially in India, I think, because the data protection talent pool is so nascent and it's very limited. So I'll do the technology and legal question after the first one. And I think given that we know the talent pool is so limited, we've been forced to think outside the box, right? So one of the things that we have been doing is really thinking about how we can grow talent internally, because looking at talent internally is always a bit more of a safer bet, at least in my opinion. And my personal view is that every single person in your organization should be a privacy professional or a data protection, well, I don't know if I want to use the word expert, but everybody in the organization should know about privacy and data protection, right? Data, like Vivian said, cuts across the whole organization. And forget about organization, even in our day-to-day lives, right? Data is what we live and breathe every day. So if you don't know about it for your job, at least have an understanding in your personal life. When you're downloading an app, whatever you're doing, nothing is ever free. You're giving data away. So I think that's the first, is a baseline education for all of your workforce. Everybody should know about data protection and privacy, right? Regardless of what role they are. Then the next level is role-based training. Make it targeted. If you're a marketing person, you should know about consent, opt-in, opt-out. If you're HR, you should know about, employee monitoring, etc. Take it that one next level. And then one further level from that, and this is something that we have found has been quite successful at HCL, is we've been training what we call our privacy champion community. So getting them IAPP, CIPPE qualifications. We've had 400 champions trained for CIPPE. To me, that's my next talent pool. So if I need people, I know they're invested, they're interested, they've done the training, that's where I can look to, who I can then skill up, right, to support us in our global privacy office. So I think that's one of the ways organizations can think about how to tackle this lack of talent and pool. Another thing is also, your trainee programs, get privacy in there as a subject matter expert for your management trainees. The trainees that are coming into your organizations, make sure it's part of the program. Everyone is trained. And also don't be siloed in your thinking. And that comes to your latter question, technology illegal. My honest opinion, I don't think there's any domain where privacy and data protection can't be leveraged, right? You could have legal, technology, you can have HR is a huge skill set as well for privacy. Engineering, there's so many different facets of the business, I think, where skill sets can be leveraged for the privacy space. I don't think we should set any limitations. Yes, historically, I'm a lawyer myself, and most of my counterparts of lawyers tends to have privacy experts have come from the legal profession. But now I'm seeing is that it's coming across different educational sectors, audit, security, HR. Don't limit yourselves. I think if you people have the interest, they're eager and willing, just invest, and then you have a bigger pool, hopefully.
Sure. So, Vivian, coming to an important aspect of privacy is the culture. So we see that the culture plays a very important role in privacy, because privacy is viewed as a human right, and different societies have grown in a different way. The priorities are different, and it's rightly so that every country views it differently. And some are in the path where they will be few decades from now, they will evolve to a different level of privacy compliance. But regardless of that, I think the regulations are imposing certain minimum set of standards because of the fact that data is floating boundaryless. There's no concept of data in one place. Data is everywhere. So you have to have a minimum set of laws, in at least in all the democratic countries and countries which respect these laws. And most of the countries are evolved into that. So what do you think as a DPO or CPO has a role in the culture aspect, and how they can ensure that the impact of cultural variations is not impacting the regulation? There's a minimum impact of that.
Thank you. It's a topic I'm actually very interested in is the cultural dimension, because often what we focus on is the difference in the laws, and we look at the laws and say, my law says this and your law says that. Is it equivalent? And it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same, because you have common law jurisdictions, you have civil law jurisdictions, you have those who have constitutions and not. Every jurisdiction has evolved in different ways, and how they choose to govern, and the intersection with other laws. So one of the biggest challenges for a DPO or a CPO is managing all of those different legislative aspects, and then you add into that culture. And culture is how it feels. It's the perceptions. If you ask somebody in North America, are you comfortable with this particular type of marketing behavior? And they may say, yes, I think it's wonderful. I love to have personalized communications. You ask somebody in a different jurisdiction, are you comfortable with this sort of marketing behavior? They say, oh my goodness, that feels so intrusive. That's just, it doesn't feel right. And so they're very different perspectives based on history, culture, politics, laws, religion, all sorts of things that define how different jurisdictions and different peoples respond to privacy. So I think there's two things we can do. I think the first one is stop comparing the laws and start looking at the outcomes. So we will articulate things differently, and we will have a fundamentally different legal basis for privacy in different jurisdictions. That's just a reality. So I think what we should do, though, is look at the outcomes. What are we aiming for? What we're aiming for is transparency, data subject rights, fair processing, and the opportunity for recourse if things don't go well. How you articulate that and how you achieve that will vary. But what we should be doing is actually focusing on outcomes. And the other part of it is organizations can't be a different thing to everybody, but they need to work out internally what is their culture with regard to privacy, and how will that interact with the destinations and the customers they have across the world, and find a level playing field within your own organization. And I think the discussions and the evolution around ethics and around trust is where we need to be focusing, and adjusting for certain jurisdictions where there are significant cultural differences. But you need to know, as an organization, what is your culture with regard to data and privacy? And how does that translate into those areas where you are looking to do business and engage with your customers? And I think it's very much around working out what you think is a transparent and a fair and an ethical way of doing business and treating the data that you hold. It's a tremendous responsibility and a privilege as well as an opportunity. But you can lose that trust in a moment, and it takes years to build up. So I'm delighted you asked the question about culture, because often that gets ignored. And it is that tangible sense and feel of the words may say one thing, but it feels very different when you actually put it into practice. And that's something that we all need to be conscious of, is that we look at data and we look at privacy through different lenses and from different perspectives. And that needs to be honored in our approach to our customers and how we handle data going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very interesting perspective brought. I think I fully agree with you, Vivian. So, Sunny, what's your view about this aspect on culture, particularly in a company which operates globally? The There is a huge amount of cultural diversity among people, businesses you deal with, clients you deal with, and as I said before, that the headquarters, the processing headquarters would be somewhere else, whereas the clients are in a different region. People could be in a third region. So, how do you balance this cultural diversity?
I think, like Vivian said, there's no one size fits all, right? Each organization will be unique, have its own cultures and ways of working, and even one level down, they might have, like you said, one culture in, let's just say India, right? Because I had one culture in India, then you have a culture, and we see this here, culture in Europe, a way of working, which then, the balance is always slightly off, right? Europe, oh, they're too strict, they're too stringent. India, well, we want to do business, we want to do things that way. Is trying to find that balance, and trying to understand, like Vivian said, your organization and what will work for your organization. Some organizations, setting the tone at the top is crucial and fundamental for driving change, right? And setting the culture. And that's what I found here, is the setting the tone at the top and it trickling down is a great way for some organizations. For others, it's, hybrid, tone at the top and at the bottom, work your way up. I think it very much depends on the way your organization is structured. It also very much depends, like with personal data, right? Where are the decisions being made, right? Are your personal data or privacy decisions being made centrally? Or is it, hybrid, hub and spokes? Is every geo making their own decisions? And then you have to tailor your approach depending on your business. So you could make, for example, key relationships with leaders in each of the geos where you have a presence, and then obviously also focusing on your HQ, making sure that, like we said, privacy is an integral part of every single person's role, and their position in the company. But I think it's really difficult to kind of give a one size fits all. You really have to make it dynamic based on your corporate organization and the current culture. Right, trying to do change is always difficult. I think whatever culture you have now, use that to your advantage.
I agree fully. Yeah. I think a lot of awareness needs to be also created, baseline awareness. And one other thing companies could do is also go for one of the standards, PIMS standards, if you implement, which will ensure that there's a baseline set of data privacy implemented across the world. And then you have those delta, which is required for Europe vis-a-vis South Brazil and all that stuff. Hina, one of the points that comes to our mind when we develop solutions, platforms, solutions, etc., is that traditionally we have been used to privacy being something thought about as you do a check, you do an inspection at the end and say that, hey, people come to you and say, hey, DPO, can you check this? Is this fine? Ready to go to the market? Uh, it comes more as an afterthought as opposed to the privacy by design culture, which is increasingly being realized by the world. And the idea was floated decades ago by Dr. Ann Cohen in Canada, but we have come a long way. Today, it's part of many frameworks, and privacy by design is increasingly being part of the regulation today. So, what do you think can be done, and how are organizations doing ensuring that privacy by design culture is part of the DNA for the organization?
Thank you, Srinivas. That's a very great question. So, what I believe, like Sunny also said, it's the awareness from the top. If you set the tone of the organization that as much as we are invested in security, in measures, it is it's equally important to kind of reiterate that privacy needs to be taken into consideration, right? And we've had a lot of legacy applications and legacy processes where privacy was not the first choice for everyone. It was security, it was all about security. But as long as you're trying to create that, just as much as security is important, also is privacy, because here we're trying to process so much information and the impact it makes to the individuals whose data is being processed. If you're able to have that message passed on to the businesses, to the innovators, right, they do seem to understand, yes, it's very relevant to consider this subject in the very beginning, because that is the prima facie of what they're trying to do. If they're trying to work on personal information projects and it has certain impact on individuals in the long run, the commitment to the clients, right, it's very important for them to realize. And it's all about having to make them more aware, having to make them tell what can go wrong much later than when it really comes to last minute sign off. So that's how I see it.
Sure. So I think since we have 1 or 2 minutes left, I would put one more question, which is I think Vivian you spoke about, and we did take it forward. Is that the dependency on various functions, which are the teams we work with. So we know that unlike in case of cybersecurity, where the entire company is focused on an unknown enemy called hacker, either nation hacker or a criminal. So the entire machinery is one. They all want to defend that enemy. In case of privacy, however, the adversary is often within the organization. It could be your marketing department, HR, CTO, CIO. They would like to embrace innovation in a manner which is very important for the organization, obviously. And me, all of us, are seen as one who spoils sport. We stop the showstoppers. At the same time, there is a need for collaborating between various functions, particularly cybersecurity, CTO, CIO. So there is a balance between conflict resolution and collaboration. So I just want to hear your views, Vivian, Sunny, any of you can quickly give your perspectives.
Oh, that's terrific. I'm happy to start. I think that the Privacy Office needs to not be seen as a hurdle, but to be seen as a compliance enabler. Not a business enabler, which lets you do whatever you want, but as a compliance enabler. We can help keep people out of jail, and that's where we really want to be. So however ambitious and fantastic the business idea, it has to be one that's going to work, and it has to be one that's going to work with your customers. Nobody wants to do anything which is wrong or illegal or is going to breach the trust of your customers. And I quite like the idea of this evolution of the privacy function into trust. And I think if you articulate it and think of your privacy team as that group that helps to maintain the trust in your organization, then I think it changes that dynamic from we want to do this, but you don't want us to do it because you're providing a hurdle, to actually let's build trust together. So we're in this together. And I think that's why it's so important that this function is integral with the business. I mean, your CISO should be your best friend for a start. If you're not getting on well with your CISO, then there's something seriously wrong there. But the DPO and the CISO need to be best buddies. But I think if we focus on trust, then we'll head in the right direction.
Sure. Sunny and Hina, you want to add anything?
Yes, I completely agree with Vivian. Trust is paramount. It's the key. I think the biggest value and value add, right? Relationships and value add. What are you bringing to the table? We don't want to be a stopgap, a blocker. We want to add value. And how do we add value? Like Vivian said, trust, transparency, right? Understanding the business, telling them, okay, well, you can do it, but maybe you should think about doing it this way, right? That is definitely one area I think we should think about is value add for the business.
Sure. Hina, you want to add anything?
Yes, I agree with both of them, and I'm glad that Vivian chose the term compliance enablers because, like she said, that is how we should be seen instead of, being a roadblock in their way to innovate, in their way to do more business and expansion. So, as long as we're able to translate these privacy laws to telling, employees, our clients, and customers that it's all about you and it's all about protecting your data is where, they're actually going to also reflect on what we're trying to say to them.
Right. Thank you. And I see that one or two questions have come very quickly. We can just take two of them and then close the session. So one is, if we see the role of the DPO as a private regulator, according to you, does GDPR provide necessary power or resources to perform the role? GDPR doesn't provide resources. They ask you to provide resources. But Vivian, Sunny, anybody of you can take the question quickly.
I have to say I'm not that fussed about the term private regulator. It's I think we just had the discussion about culture and trust, and I think that's where we need to be positioning the role. The legislation is very helpful, as you say, which is it requires the DPO to be appropriately mandated and resourced, and that's fundamentally important. And that goes back to the conversation we had about the board. But I think we need to be seeing that DPO role in a very positive light within an organization rather than being an internal policeman.
Right. Anyone wants to add? Okay. So the last question is this a full-time activity or can it be done as shared mode? I can answer this. It need not be full-time activity. The DPO can be we can have subcontractor part-time, and inside the organization also DPO can play the role along with another role as long as it doesn't conflict. Most regulations allow that. So I think with that we'll bring the session to an end. We are already late by 3 minutes. I would like to thank all three of you for sparing this time and bearing with me on this panel. It was a very fruitful conversation, and thank you all participants in DSA once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.